Okay? Here's another ranch that we worked with. This is in Mexico, Las Damas. After 5 years of adaptive grazing, this is what their ranch looks like. This is what their neighbors looks like. And both sides of the fence look the same 5 years ago. Okay? Portions of Las Damas now, what it looks like. Here's our average rainfall. Last 4 years, 10, 9, 8, and 5. They're desert. They're high mountain desert. Okay? 5 years ago, there were monoculture kielbasa grass. Now we have dozens of plant species, all derived from the Lake Seaboard. 5 years ago, it took them 200 acres to run an animal unit. Today, it takes them 40 acres. Their neighbor's ranch, it still takes 200 acres. Now, somehow, they keep having fence problems between them and their neighbor. Right? This is another client of ours in South Carolina. This is after a single year of adaptive grazing. This is how rapid you can make progress. Okay? He actually, it went so well for him after a single year that, whoops, that should be December 2015. In December of last year, he presented at the National Grazing Lands Conference in Texas. And the title of his presentation was Soil Destroyer to Soil Builder. And he had a packed room for this presentation. This is what his farm looked like when I first started working with him. We did an initial assessment and all that, but you can see, oxidized manure patties, grazed down hard and tight, a lot of weeds everywhere. And he was feeding, this is in South Carolina, he considered his normal hay feeding season to be October to April. Okay? Because he didn't have any grass after that. Because he grazed down too tight. And he kept having all these weed problems, everything else. Well, something's going to try to grow there. If you're not grazing to have the forages growing there, then the weeds are going to grow there. Okay? And that's precisely what happened. So we went in and implemented daily moves. So we did once daily moves. That's all we did. We did not decrease the number of animals or anything like that. We just went to once daily moves. Okay? And after 1 year, this is what it looked like. After 1 year, one grazing season, as a matter of fact, not even one whole calendar year, one single grazing season. He told me he was born and raised on this farm. He's in his 60s now. He told me he has never had more grass on his farm. It is out of 60 years. Never seen more grass on this farm. Yes, sir.
So no weed control?
No weed control. We did no weed control, no mowing, no seeding, nothing like that. Just the livestock is good. That's all we changed. That's right. But, so nothing to control anything other than the cattle and polymark and daily moves. So his cost, and this was, we work on acreage everywhere from, some of our clients only have a few acres, and we have clients that have more than 1 million acres. And we work everywhere in between, okay? This, I had the question yesterday. Yeah, Jared.
Keep going.
I had the question yesterday. Well, how does this scale? Can this be done on small acres, or do you need really large acres and really large herds or whatever? And the answer is no. You just need to do it. Doesn't matter the number of acres, doesn't matter your herd size, you can do this. Okay. Unless you only have one cow. Okay? But, or just a couple of cows or something like that. But, so, this guy has 40 acres. Okay? And so we didn't destock anything, we just changed this, and he has, like I said, more just grass running out of his ears. Yeah.
I run into this a lot with, continuous grazing, small herds, 30 or less kind of thing. At what point in the spring, are there any guidelines for when you start grazing this? What kind of rest period, what kind of heights are you shooting for with an overgraze typical like that?
Yep. And, I showed you some data, and you saw it yesterday, about when to graze and all that. But this is what we did for him, because he had to say, okay, how do I get started? Because I don't have any grass. Okay? How in the heck do I get started? So these pictures were taken in the fall of 2014, and we wanted to start his great new grazing program in the spring of 2015. Okay? And then this was in September of 2015 that those pictures were taken. Okay? So I said, this is what you're going to do. This winter, the winter of 2014-15, you're going to bale graze. Okay? And you're going to start building new soil organic matter using your bale grazing. So that's what he did. And he had to because he didn't have any grass. Okay? So he had to feed them something. So we bale grazed. And then I said, you're going to bale graze until you get grass in the spring that is mid-stage maturity before you start grazing for the first go-round. And that's what he did. Okay? And then he started the grazing process. And we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit.
What about starting mid-season? Someone's got their grass crop right down. They're going to start feeding hay. We'd be better to try and bale graze during the growing season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Confine them to a sacrificed pasture, bale graze them, and let your grass get ahead of you.
So essentially dry bottom.
Yes.
Bale grazing.
Yes.
That's
Do a sacrificed area, dry lot them, and let your grass get ahead. Otherwise, you're never going to get started. You know, you got to get started. That is well worth it. Okay? That one thing is well worth it. So again, you know, abundant grass. You know, you can see that we even had to, you know, just to lay down the poly wire. Okay, we had to go using the UTV to mash down grass to get the poly wire out. All of that, he had so much grass. He's never had that kind of problem before. You know? All right, this is a farm. This next farm is a farm that we purchased, my partner and I, in Mississippi, about 6 years ago now, that made it contiguous with another farm that we had. Okay? So it's a good purchase for us in that regard. But it gave me the opportunity on my own piece of ground to start from day one, collecting baseline data and tracking it all the way through. Okay? So I've kept data, extensive data all the way through, and a pictorial diary all the way through. Okay? And so this is what it looked like when we purchased it. It had been, now in this part of Mississippi, it's been under, you know, row crop production from cotton for 100 plus years, and then corn, beans, all kinds of stuff, since the early 1800s. Okay? So a long time, been used a long time. And this is what it looked like. So you can see, you know, I mean, we had very little growing here that fall. You know, it just looked terrible. And this was about 1,000 acres, and the whole place looked like it. Okay? So this was our starting point, our baseline data. Soil organic matter 1.3 to 1.6. Pretty pathetic. Water infiltration rate, so that's 1/2 inch an hour. So it's like concrete, everything running off. I wasn't keeping any water. Plant bricks. How many people are familiar with bricks? We can talk about it later. At a very low 2%, that's pathetic. Major forage species, no more than 3 to 4 that were in existence. And the stocking rate, it took 6 acres per animal unit. Okay, yes?
What kind of per acre purchase price were you working with a farm like that?
This was 1,200. Okay. First winter, bale grazing. Okay, implemented bale grazing. Then that first growing season, we went to high stock density, short duration along rest periods, and we made strategic use of microbial quorum sensing product that I'll talk a little bit about here in a bit. This is year one grazing. These are my grandkids, grandsons. All right, year one grazing. This set of cows, when we dropped them in that winter, they've never been removed from this farm. Okay? This has been their home from day one. We dropped them in, they've been there since then. What do you see growing here?
Weeds.
There you go. Weeds. Okay, in the technical classification, right? And now, let me tell y'all something about Mississippi. How many have been to Mississippi? Oh, wow, a bunch of you. All right? Let me tell you something about Mississippi. All right, we grow every weed known to man. And I think we even invented some, okay? So weeds love Mississippi. So we had weeds and more weeds. I mean, you name it, ironweed, giant ragweed, pigweed, thistle, sumac, ash, it was all there. And when we dropped these cows in, they hadn't seen stuff like this before. So they've been at the other farm. Okay? And they were gestating cows due to calve in April and May. All right? And this is what they were calving on and eating to calve and lactate and raise calves. And they learned real quick how to eat weeds. Okay? Now, I had neighbors that thought I was the biggest fool, and sometimes I thought I was too. Okay? And literally, I had neighbors telling me I was going to starve them cows to death, and what was I thinking? Okay? Nothing but weeds out there. And so we would graze them in the high stock densities, okay? And we have polywire through these weeds. You can't see it through the weeds. We have polywire through them weeds. And I would take my Ranger here and mash down the weeds to make me a little lane from my polywire, all right? And this is what the paddocks would look like after they come out, okay? So they would strip, like the ragweed, ironweed, all that, they would strip those leaves off of there, okay? And eat them all. And these cows kept gaining in body condition, eating weeds. Now, first of all, these weeds are what? Deeply rooted, right? Deeply rooted. So they were reaching down and pulling up minerals from deep in the ground that most forages can't. And when I actually performed Brix tests on those leaves of those weeds, and we also did a plant tissue analysis, guess what? They were loaded in nutrition, and they were high Brix. So the cattle were gaining weight, not losing weight, eating weeds, right? They were performing better than they were on a, quote, improved pasture. Now, one thing about, how many people are familiar with ironweed? An ironweed can grow up to 8 feet tall, and it has purple blossoms up at the top. And ironweed loves Mississippi, okay? But guess what else likes ironweed? Heard of fire ants? Now, Mississippi, throughout the South, we have a lot of fire ants. They're nasty little critters, okay? Very nasty. Anyway, those little purple blossoms up at the top of those ironweed plants, they like to climb up and they eat the nectar, okay, in those little blossoms. Well, my grandsons sent them out on the Ranger to lay out polywire and all this, and they would run through that ironweed and fling fire ants on themselves, okay? Now, if you ever seen 4 little boys squirming and shucking clothes, but so they don't call ironweed, they call it antweed. All right, that's their name for ironweed, is antweed. All right, this is year 2. What do you see?
More grass.
Okay, more grass, less weeds, still weeds, right? Okay, but a lot more grass, a lot more uniformity, right? Year 3. And year 4.
Cut the stalks after they strip them,
No.
or just let everything set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't mow, no herbicides, no fertilizer, right? We just used the cows as a tool, just like we've done at other places. So here's where we ended up. All right, after the end of that period, soil organic matter should increase from 1.3 to 1.6 over 5. Forage species, again, no planting, so this is all from the latent seed bank. 43 documented species. This was third-party documented by Mississippi State University Extension Service and the local NRCS personnel. Right? Plant Brix had increased from 2% to 15 to 22%. Water infiltration rates greater than 10 inches an hour. So now we're keeping all our water. And guess what? We're even getting our neighbors' water because they haven't improved, so their rain is running off on us. So we not only get to keep more of our rainfall, we get to keep more of theirs as well. All right? Stocking rate down to 1.5 acres per animal unit, and significant increase in everything else. Earthworms, soil level insects, pollinators, wildlife, you name it. Yes?
What's a plant break? What's a plant break?
Bruce.
Bricks, I'm gonna show you that in a little bit here. We're gonna have a little section on bricks. It's nutrient density in the plants. Now, one of the things that we do is we keep the cattle out of our ponds, so we ring with polywire, okay, single strand polywire, and then we build these ramps into them, and these are 12-foot wide ramps. We lay down geotextile fabric and rock over top of that, and it's down into the pond, so the cattle can come down here and drink, okay, but not get into the ponds and muck up the ponds and all of that. Okay, so it's controlled access. The other thing that we did is in all of our ponds, we laid pipe through the levees and went out with piping to feed water troughs out in other fields, more distant. Okay? So we're using our ponds as a major water source, both in water troughs, and they can drink directly out of them. Now, one thing that we do try to do is never use a single water source for more than a week at a time. So I frequently rotate my water sources with my cattle rotations. Okay? That's to keep water clean and to keep from creating heavy use areas and cow paths and erosion and all of that. So I constantly rotate around my watering points as well. We also stockpile our warm season perennials. So this is the winter time there. This is stockpiled forage or prairie, as I call it here. And this is moving the cows last January or this January out onto the stockpiled warm season perennials. That they perform very well with. This is my fencing rig. This is what I use. There's all different, I'll show you some examples later of different types that you can do, but I just subdivided the bottom bed to hold my different types of posts. I've got it double decked to hold my reels and all of that up here, and everything else that I need. So everything's handy, makes it real quick and simple and easy to do our temporary fencing. Now, here's the deal. This is a great way to teach kids, okay? Like my kids and grandkids, I can send them out there, they can learn a lot about nature, they can learn about animals, they can learn about work and responsibility and so forth. And as I said, I have 3 grandboys. The youngest grandson is about 9, and he's a handful, okay? You ever had a kid that's hard to discipline? None of y'all, but you have one. Well, this is one, okay? And we have tried every form of discipline on the man, and nothing seems to work on this kid until we found this. So, just like in marketing, you've got to keep hunting for the solution, right? Okay, another tool that we've used frequently that has helped us quite a bit is Pasture map. Okay, it's an app. You can go online and Google it, but it's a very, very good tool developed by a group out of California called Summer Technologies. And they have done a superb job of developing a tool that allows us to track our grazing and to keep outstanding records and to make really good grazing decisions. You can upload photographs. You can draw your paddocks every time you redo paddocks. You can download satellite images, all of these types of things, thermal reflectance images, you name it. So it's a very, very useful tool. I recommend taking a look at it. Yes?
It says it works without cell phone reception?
It'll work, you can work it without the reception, and then if you come back to where you got Wi-Fi, you can do uploading and downloading and that kind of stuff. Right.
You're doing it, but it's not
Right.
happening in the field.
Right. But you can still use it in the field without having to have a Wi-Fi connection, but not just your downloading stuff and all that. You can do that when you come back and you have, an internet connection. Yeah. Okay, so does grazing strategy methodology matter? Well, one of the things that I'm involved with is a consortium of scientists that we call ourselves Team Soil Carbon. And we're made up of scientists from different universities in the U.S., and even companies in the U.S., and from around the world. So we have scientists from Australia, from Canada, from Europe, and different places. And what we're doing is we're measuring and documenting the positive benefits of adaptive grazing in many different regions of the world. Okay? So this is some of the data that we collected. We did this in Mississippi in the fall of 2014, and we used that farm of ours that I just showed you, where we've done this adaptive grazing for just 5 years. And then we looked at what we call a high-level conventional grazing management farm that was a neighboring farm. They've been doing slow rotations, about every 2 weeks to a month rotation, for 50 plus years. And then we looked at another neighboring farm that basically has been doing continuous grazing for 30 plus years. Okay? So like that Texas ranch. We done soil pits 3 foot deep, 3 feet deep, 3 feet square, and collected soil samples every 6-inch gradient all the way down to 3 feet, and performed the analysis on that. And here's what we found. Okay? With the adaptive grazing, our soil pH stayed the same from the top 6 inches down to 3 feet. But look at the variation in the slow rotation versus continuous grazing neighboring farms. If we look at total soil carbon, again, we have significantly higher soil carbon all the way down to 3 feet versus the slow rotation and continuous grazing.
What's the measurement for that? What's the units?
I'll look it up. Organic matter, this is percent, okay? Organic matter, again, significantly higher, all the way down to 3 feet versus the slow rotation, continuous grazing. And then the carbon assessment per acre, okay? So if we look at the adaptive versus the slow rotation and continuous grazing, you can see that in kilograms per square meter of soil, we have significantly higher carbon there. In terms of tons per acre, significantly higher. And then basically in our sequestration rate, okay, significantly higher. So we were stocking a lot more carbon in the soil than the other grazing methods. Yes?
We had a young student on our farm, and she was learning, she was from Costa Rica Earth University, talking about companies buying carbon. Is that happening? Are you seeing that? Where farmers can produce carbon by this type of grazing. Companies will pay these farmers because so how do you find out about that as a farmer?
Well, there's some going on right now, but not near enough. But that is developing, and that will be a tradable asset in the fairly near future. There's been a lot of hiccups in the development of that. And frankly, a lot of those hiccups have been politically driven, like, a lot of other things. Right? So that it is coming though, and it will be more readily available. So for those of us that are doing these types of practices, it allows us sort of a passive income stream for doing what we're doing already.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that excites me. Hopefully we'll get here sooner rather than later. Yes, sir.
Were there any amendments involved in the soil pH? The first soil you had
No.
basic soil.
No.
The rest were acid.
No amendments. No lining or anything like that. No, sir. And again, these were neighboring farms, so exact same soil types. It was just simply the soil microbial action and the building of carbon that helps buffer that pH.
So the microbial action is what explains the pH difference.
Yeah, microbial action is a tremendous soil buffering tool, pH buffering tool. Yes, sir. And you'll find that if you maintain a proper microbial balance, you'll never have to lime again. Who limed the Great Plains? Before we put the plow to it and then had to start liming it. You know what I mean? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So the quorum sensing, we also use, this is one of the technologies that we did use to help us in creating more rapid improvement. And don't get bogged down in this. All it is, quorum sensing and quenching are the way that microbes communicate. It doesn't matter what kind of microbes they are, it's the way they communicate. This has been known about in the medical field for at least the last 2 decades. We're just now discovering that we can use this in the agricultural field, okay, with soil microbiology. But again, microbes, they all work the same way. So the bottom line is, this is what it is, okay? We're basically, and I don't do it, there's a lab that does this that I work with, but basically they can create, based on your individual farm data, the data that we talked about earlier, the soil fertility combined with the soil biology, they can take that and custom create what I call a soil vaccine. Okay? And it's just like a vaccine that we use for animals or for ourselves. It's basically a lyophilized cells of microbes, so enzymes and proteins that are then applied to the soil, and they create the native soil microbial population recognizes those, just like the cells in our body recognize the cells from a vaccine, right? And then react to it, respond to it by what? Rapidly producing antibodies, right? Okay? So in the soil, it's a similar type effect. Soil microbes, it creates rapid communication, okay? And so what happens when microbes communicate more? They replicate. That's a natural function of what they do, okay? So when they communicate more, they replicate. You know, it's sort of like college students on spring break in Florida, okay? So that rapid communication and replication, what it does is it allows for rapid proliferation or growth of your native soil microbial population. That's precisely the impact I want. You know, when I apply, and the question was asked earlier, can you apply, you know, some of these microbes or whatever? The problem is, and I've done a lot of field trial research with a lot of different microbial products, and the problem has always been that they were always hit and miss, because you never knew exactly what microbes and what density and concentration and so forth that soil needed. So the concept of recruiting the native population makes a lot more sense to me. And it has worked very, very well. So we've used this, and these are some of the results that we've seen. This is a field that was drilled in a summer annual the exact same day, same drill, same seed, everything. So both of these were treated the same, except in these strips, we also applied the quorum product, and we didn't here. And so we did this across 500 acres on this farm and produced these strips. Every single plot that we used the treated strip with the quorum products, we received these kind of results. And then in cornfields, in using this is a farmer out of Illinois that I've been working with, and this is what we found there, okay? This was in August, and by using the quorum sensing technology to rapidly improve the soil microbial population, we found earthworm castings and earthworms in a cornfield, everywhere across that cornfield in the middle of August, all right? That's very powerful. So we stimulated a lot of activity, and this were the results of the corn farmer. This is where he started, the baseline data, in soil pH, organic matter, CEC, and then P and K and calcium and mag. And after a single season, these were the increases. Right? So pretty profound impact, a quick way to get a quick start. Now here's the deal. There is no product that you should have to use year in and year out. Even if you use something like this, like quorum products, to get going and to get a rapid start, if you still have to use this after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, then it means your management hasn't taken over. Okay? So my philosophy is now, I don't want any product to to be something that I have to rely on every single year. Okay? I want to